It seems like every time I talk to you all, I have some sort of confession to make. But this time, I have yet another confession to make. I am currently at hour 71 of a 72-hour fast. No food, just water, black coffee, and a level of irritability that is usually reserved for people who drive slow in the left lane. Now, why am I telling you this? Because when your body runs out of glucose, your tolerance for ambiguity hits absolute zero. You crave substance. You crave something solid. You crave a double cheeseburger with bacon. But since I can't have a cheeseburger, I decided to feed my brain instead. So, I opened up the February issue of Professional Safety Journal, hoping for some rigorous science to distract me from the fact that my stomach is currently trying to digest itself. And what did I find? I found a report that claims to tell us what works. But the more I read, the more I realized it might just be telling us what everyone thinks works. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the latest industry report on AI, SIFs, and human factors. We are going to compare industry sentiment against the actual standards. And we are going to ask the question, are we actually preventing fatalities? Or are we just agreeing on the best way to fill out a dashboard? I'm hungry, I'm fired up, and I'm ready to look at the data. It's an all-new Prove It To Me. Welcome back to Prove It To Me. I'm your host, Dr. Matt Law. Let's get right into the news. In February, the Professional Safety Journal released a summary of a new white paper by the Works Institute and Evotix, titled Risk Recalibrated, 2026 Executive Leadership Report. Now, before I get into the critique, I want to give credit where it's due. I have a lot of respect for the folks at the Works Institute. They do the hard work of taking the pulse of the industry. They ask the questions that we need to hear answers to. But, and you knew there was a but coming, we have to be very careful about how we read these reports. This is not a peer-reviewed study. This is a survey. It's a snapshot of opinion. The report highlights that 80% of organizations have SIF prevention efforts in place. It says 94% are using digital management. It paints a picture of an industry that is moving fast, adopting AI and focusing on human-centric safety. But here is the catch. The report also admits that nearly 1 in 5 EHS leaders believe their current metrics have no relation to real risk. Think about that for a second. That is nearly 20% of leaders looking at their dashboard and saying, this is nonsense. And my gut tells me the other 80% are just too polite to say it. Let's talk about SIFs, serious injuries and fatalities. The report says that SIF definitions vary widely, resulting in muddled data. Now, this is where my hangry science brain starts to twitch, because we have definitions. We have standards. I pulled up ANSI ASSP Z16.1, published in 2022. This is the standard for safety and health metrics and performance measures. Z16 doesn't just say count the dead bodies. It gives us a framework for leading indicators, lagging indicators, and impact metrics. And crucially, we need to look at another recently updated standard for the definition of serious injuries. We need to use ASTM E2920. So, I pulled up ASTM E2920 published in 2026, just last month, and let me tell you, there is nothing muddled about it. ASTM E2920 gives us precise, rock-solid definitions. It defines life-ending, a fatality. It defines life-threatening, requiring immediate rescue. And it defines life-altering, which is a permanent or significant loss of organ function. But it goes further. It defines PSIF, which is potential serious incident or fatality. And it doesn't just leave it up to your imagination. It gives criteria. For example, if something falls, is it a PSIF? The standard actually gives a math equation. It says mass times height times gravity greater than 40 joules. If a falling object hits with more than 40 joules of energy, that is a PSIF. It defines a fall from height as greater than 4 feet. It defines a motor vehicle crash PSIF as impact speed greater than 15 miles per hour. So, when the survey says definitions vary widely, what that really means is we aren't reading the standard. If 80% of companies are working on SIFs, but they are all using different definitions, we aren't an industry. We are just a bunch of hobbyists working in separate garages. Let's pivot to the shiny object in the room, artificial intelligence. The report is very bullish on AI. It says 44% of companies are exploring AI for automated dashboards. 29% are using it for incident investigations. 44% are using chatbots and copilots for SOPs. Now, I love technology. I'm recording this on a computer that is probably smarter than I am right now. But I want to look at this through the lens of validity. The survey says 58% of leaders are concerned about data quality. Only 58%? That number should be 100%. If you have muddled SIF definitions, as the report admits, and you feed that muddled data into an AI, the AI isn't going to fix it. It's just going to hallucinate a pattern that doesn't exist. Garbage in, artificially intelligent garbage out. And think about the definitions we just talked about. Can an AI determine if a falling object had 40 joules of kinetic energy? Maybe, but only if the human inputting the data measured the weight and the height accurately. If we skip the human intelligence part of gathering accurate data, the artificial intelligence part is useless. I want to pause here and talk about the difference between descriptive and inferential statistics again, because this is crucial for this report. The Works Institute has given us excellent descriptive statistics. They have described what is happening. 42% are piloting AI. That is a fact. But we crave inferential statistics. We want to know, does it work? Does using an AI chatbot for SOPs reduce error rates? Does tracking psychosocial risk actually lower the DART rate? The report quotes Jonathan English, the CEO of Evotix, saying, "Leaders agree on the destination, but not yet on the common language." He is absolutely right. And that lack of common language is why we can't run the regression models yet. We can't correlate AI usage with safety performance because safety performance is measured differently at every company. Let's talk about the human-centric aspect. The report says 71% of organizations acknowledge control of work conditions as a risk factor. 66% acknowledge mental health strain. This is great. I am genuinely happy that we are talking about this. But again, let's look at the standards. ANSI Z16 encourages us to look at impact metrics, not just injury rates, but things like employee engagement, turnover, and cultural surveys. If you are one of the 66% who acknowledge mental health strain, how are you measuring it? Are you using a validated survey instrument? Or are you just asking people, how are you feeling, at the toolbox talk? The report mentions neurodiversity and cognitive load. These are complex psychological constructs. You cannot manage cognitive load with a spreadsheet. If we are going to claim we are human-centric, we need to measure the human experience with the same rigor that we measure the kinetic energy of a falling object. So, I want to offer a constructive path forward. I don't want to just sit here and complain about my hunger pangs. If you are reading this report, here is how you should use it. 1. Use it for benchmarking, not validation. If you see that 44% of companies are using AI for dashboards, use that to start a conversation with your IT department. Hey, the industry is moving this way. Are we being left behind? But don't assume that because 44% are doing it, it's the right thing to do. 2. Adopt the standards. If you're part of the muddled definition crowd, go buy ASTM E2920, the new 2026 version. Use their definitions. Is it a PSIF? Check the criteria. Is it life-altering? Check the definition. If we all start speaking the same language, the next survey from the Works Institute will be much more powerful. Number 3, run your own experiments. Don't wait for the peer-reviewed paper. Be the scientist. If you implement an AI tool, set up a control group. Measure the time saved. Measure the accuracy. Collect your own evidence. I want to go back to that quote. Leaders agree on the destination, preventing life-altering harm. That is the most important sentence in the whole PDF. We all want the same thing. The Works Institute wants it, Evotix wants it, I want it, you want it. The skepticism I have isn't about the intent, it's about the method. We are an industry that is desperate for a silver bullet. We jumped on behavior-based safety. We jumped on HOP. And now we are jumping on AI. And each time we skip the boring part. We skip the standardization. We skip the data validation. We skip the regression analysis. I am challenging you, and I'm challenging myself to stop skipping the boring part. Okay, I have about 5 minutes left in this fast. I am currently visualizing a slice of pizza floating in front of my face. But before I go, I want to wrap this up with a final thought on risk recalibration. This report is titled Risk Recalibrated, and I think that is perfect. We need to recalibrate our relationship with data. We need to stop looking for the metric that makes us look good and start looking for the metric that tells us the truth. If ANSI Z16 tells us our rate is bad, good. That is data. If ASTM E2920 tells us our recording method is flawed, good. That is data. Embrace the bad news, because the bad news is the only news that can actually help you save a life. The good news? That's just marketing. That's it for this deep dive. I'm going to go break my fast. I haven't decided what I'm going to eat yet, but I can promise you it will not be low calorie. Check the show notes for links to the Works Institute report. It is worth a read, seriously. And check the links for the ANSI and ASTM standards. If you don't have them in your library, get them. As always, if you have research you want to share, or if you want to send me a pizza, email me at contact@proveitpod.com. Until next time, I'm Dr. Matt Law. Stay skeptical, stay hungry, and stay safe. Prove It To Me is produced by me, Matt Law. Original music by Wes London. You can find this podcast on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Like what you've heard so far? Please like, subscribe, and follow wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Got questions about what we talked about or research that you want to share? Send an email to contact@proveitpod.com. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guests and do not necessarily represent the official position, opinion, or strategies of their employers or companies. Examples of research and data analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based on very limited, often single use case, and sometimes dated information. Assumptions made within this discussion about research and data analyses are not necessarily representative of the position of the host, the guests, or their employers or companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast. The presentation of the content by the guests does not necessarily constitute an active endorsement of the content by the host.